Hello everyone, I'm James. Today, we're diving into another truly horrifying real-life case. Please support the channel by subscribing and staying active. It really helps me out a lot. I'd be incredibly grateful for that. Let's get started. In the quiet, sun-drenched suburbs of Mesa, Arizona, where life often moves at a gentle pace, a darkness was brewing. On the afternoon of June 4th, 2008, 30-year-old Travis Alexander, a man known for his ambition and charisma, stepped into his shower. He couldn't have known these were his final, fleeting moments of peace, the last ordinary act in a life about to be extraordinarily and brutally extinguished. Just minutes before, he'd been laughing, posing for a camera, a digital eye capturing the last vestiges of his vibrant existence. But behind that camera was someone he'd once trusted, perhaps even loved, someone whose outward composure masked a turbulent storm of emotions, a potent cocktail of rage, jealousy, or an obsession that had curdled into something lethal. The seconds that followed would unravel into one of the most shocking, twisted, and widely publicized murder investigations in modern American history. A story stained with a bloody trail, a deliberately broken camera, and a narrative that would shift and contort with each desperate telling. This is the chilling case of Travis Alexander and the woman who stood at its dark heart, Jodi Arias. 5 long days for the friends of Travis Alexander. Each passing hour amplified a growing unease. It was June 9th, 2008. Travis, usually so connected, so full of life and conversation, had fallen silent since June 4th. Calls had gone unanswered. Texts had vanished into a digital void. The silence was deafening. So unlike the man they knew, concern finally tipped into action. A group of his closest friends decided they had to see for themselves, to lay eyes on Travis and dispel the creeping dread. Pulling up to his Mesa home, everything on the surface appeared deceptively normal. The suburban tranquility of the street offered no hint of the horror concealed within. They rang the doorbell, once, twice, the chimes echoing unanswered. A flicker of memory. A mutual friend knew the garage door code, a quick call, an explanation of their mounting worry, and that friend was on their way. The moment the garage door rumbled open, the illusion of normalcy shattered. An odor, putrid and insidious, assaulted their senses. It clung to the air, heavy and unmistakable. At first, a desperate, hopeful thought. Perhaps it was Travis's beloved dog, who now greeted them with a mournful whimper. But as they moved further into the house, ascending the stairs, the stench intensified, growing from a whisper of decay to a roar. Something was terribly, catastrophically wrong. They reached Travis's bedroom. A knock, then another. Silence. Zach Billings, one of Travis's roommates, occupied the adjacent room. When the friends roused him, he was taken aback. He hadn't seen Travis in a week, believing him to be sunning himself in Cancun on a romantic getaway with a new flame. The stark reality was about to crash down. Armed with a spare key, Zach pushed open Travis's bedroom door. The scene that confronted them was the stuff of nightmares. A vast, dark pool of blood saturated the carpet, a horrifying path leading directly to the bathroom. And there, curled in the shower stall, in the vulnerable fetal position, was Travis Alexander. The violence inflicted upon him was staggering 29 stab wounds, a brutal, deep gash across his throat that had severed his carotid artery, jugular vein, and trachea. And as if to punctuate this frenzied attack, a single gunshot wound above his left eyebrow, The chilling science of death was also apparent. Livor mortis had darkened his fingers and toes, a grim testament that he had been dead for several agonizing days. The friends, reeling in shock and horror, immediately dialed 911, the gruesome discovery forever seared into their minds. During that frantic 911 call, amidst the disbelief and grief, a name surfaced: Jodi Arias, Travis's ex-girlfriend, a woman whose past behavior, even then, was described with words like erratic and possessive. When police arrived, the scene spoke volumes, not just of violence, but of a chilling familiarity. There were no signs of forced entry. The house, apart from the site of the attack, was undisturbed. This wasn't the work of a stranger, a random home invasion. This had the chilling intimacy of betrayal. Travis had likely known his killer, trusted them, perhaps even welcomed them into his home moments before his life was stolen. The bathroom and hallway were a canvas of carnage. Bloodstains marred the walls. A single, distinct bloody left-hand palm print was discovered on the wall. A silent, damning signature. Yet, amidst this chaos, the bathroom sink was wiped clean. A small, incongruous detail hinting at a clumsy attempt to erase evidence. Investigators also found strands of long, dark hair on the floor and entangled in the grim scene within the shower, hair that appeared to be from a woman. Then, a crucial discovery, almost overlooked inside the washing machine. Investigators found a digital camera. It was wet, seemingly broken, perhaps an attempt to destroy its contents, but forensic experts are persistent. They painstakingly worked to recover the images from the camera's memory card, and what they found would blow the case wide open. The recovered pictures, dated June 4th, painted a disturbing timeline, images of Travis and Jodi Arias. In close, intimate poses, the playful atmosphere of the earlier photos took on a sinister hue in retrospect. The final photograph of Travis alive, time-stamped at 5:29 p.m., showed him in the shower, vulnerable, unsuspecting. Interspersed with these were other, more chaotic shots, blurry, disoriented images believed to have been taken accidentally, mid-attack, as the camera tumbled during the struggle. Police began interviewing everyone in Travis's orbit. His roommates admitted they'd noticed an odd smell, but had tragically dismissed it as old food or overflowing trash. The mundane explanations one reaches for before confronting the unthinkable. As the investigation widened, those who had recent contact with Travis were asked for DNA samples, and one name kept echoing louder than any other: Jodi Arias. Travis, friends recounted, had ended his tumultuous relationship with Jodi months prior. Her behavior had become suffocatingly controlling, her obsession growing more pronounced, incidents like his tires being slashed, her constant monitoring of his phone. These were the red flags flapping violently in the wind, warnings Travis had perhaps not fully heeded. Just as police were preparing to formally reach out to her, Jodi Arias made the call herself. On the phone, she sounded heartbroken, devastated by the news of Travis's death. Offering her complete cooperation, she claimed the last time she'd laid eyes on Travis was back in April, 2 long months before his murder. But who was this woman? Jodi Arias, born on July 9th, 1980, in Salinas, California, to William and Sandra Arias. Jodi grew up with 3 siblings in what appeared, from the outside, to be a stable, ordinary home. However, Jodi would later allege a darker childhood. claiming her parents began physically abusing her when she was just 7 years old. From a young age, she developed a keen interest in photography, a passion she pursued throughout her teenage years, a lens through which she viewed and captured her world. In the autumn of 2001, Jodi began working as a waitress in Carmel, California. 2 years later, in 2003, she started a relationship with the restaurant's manager, Daryl Brewer. He was nearly twice her age. She was 21. He was 40. Initially, their relationship seemed promising, characterized by affection and a passionate connection. They even bought a house together in Palm Desert, California, in May 2005. But change was on the horizon for Jodi. In early 2006, she embarked on a new career with Prepaid Legal Services, a company specializing in affordable legal aid and seminars. It was through this new professional circle that, just 1 month into the job, she became drawn to the Mormon faith, immersing herself in its teachings and attending church services. This newfound religious devotion quickly created friction with Daryl. Jodi declared she no longer wanted to be intimate, wishing to save herself for marriage as per her church's doctrines. Yet, in a seemingly contradictory move, she soon underwent breast augmentation surgery and then abruptly ended their relationship. It was September 2006, at a business conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, when 29-year-old Travis Alexander first crossed paths with Jodi Arias. For Jodi, she would later claim, it was love at first sight. Travis, a successful and charismatic motivational speaker, had overcome a deeply troubled upbringing, one of 8 children born to drug-addicted parents. His early life was marked by chaos. After his parents separated, he was raised by his devoutly Mormon paternal grandmother, whose faith and values he wholeheartedly embraced. Despite his difficult start, Travis had transformed his life, becoming a beacon of personal growth and an inspiration to many, using his own story to uplift others. After that Las Vegas conference, Travis and Jodi exchanged numbers. Though he lived in Arizona and she in California, the distance didn't seem to matter. Within a week, they met again, and that very night, their connection deepened into physical intimacy. What followed was a whirlwind romance, a constant stream of texts, calls, emails, and frequent visits. To further align herself with Travis and his world, Jodi was baptized into the Mormon Church on November 26, 2006. 3 months into their intense courtship, they made their relationship official, and Jodi uprooted her life, moving to Mesa, Arizona, to be closer to him. But the idyllic picture soon began to crack. Jodi discovered texts from another woman on Travis's phone, accusing him of cheating. Her behavior underwent a dramatic and unsettling transformation. She became increasingly possessive, her jealousy flaring, her emotions volatile and unpredictable. Friends say she obsessively checked his phone, constantly questioned his whereabouts, and would erupt in furious outbursts. Travis, once so enthusiastic about the relationship, began to feel suffocated, trapped. Some friends observed that Jodi was pulling him away from his faith, and he started to voice doubts about whether she was the right person for him. The official relationship, so intensely begun, ended just as quickly, collapsing after only 4 months, in June 2007. However, the ties weren't completely severed. They continued to engage in clandestine sexual encounters, often traveling together for business events. In Jodi's mind, perhaps, the possibility of reconciliation still flickered. Travis, however, began to move on, dating other women. It was during this period that his car tires were slashed on 2 separate occasions, acts he suspected Jody was behind. He also believed she was sending anonymous, threatening emails to him and his new romantic interests. Friends recalled him recounting a disturbing incident where Jody had allegedly broken into his house by crawling through the doggy door. Despite these alarming red flags, their physical intimacy persisted, a dangerous undercurrent to their fractured relationship. They exchanged intimate pictures, and Jody's focus on Travis remained unnervingly intense. By mid-2008, Travis was confiding in friends that Jody had gone further. Hacking into his bank account and social media profiles, he felt like he was being stalked, shadowed, and he didn't know how to break free from her tenacious grip. Then came a pivotal moment. Travis was planning a trip to Cancun, scheduled for June 15th, 2008. He asked another woman, Mimi Hall, to accompany him. This was to be their definitive break. Initially, the trip had been planned with Jody, his last-minute change of plans, replacing her with someone else, reportedly sent Jody into a rage. Just days before Travis's murder, on May 28, 2008, a peculiar incident occurred miles away, at Jody's grandparents' house in Wairika, California, where she was then living. A burglary was reported. Among the items stolen, a .25 caliber handgun, the same caliber that would later be linked to Travis's death. The timeline leading up to June 4th became a critical focus for investigators. On June 2nd, Jody left her grandparents' home at 5:39 a.m. By 8:04 a.m., she was in Redding, California, renting a car. When offered a red vehicle, she specifically requested a more inconspicuous color. Ominously, she also brought 2 gasoline cans with her, an unusual provision that would later suggest a meticulous plan to obscure her travel route, to avoid the digital breadcrumbs left by credit card transactions at gas stations and the prying eyes of security cameras. Jody told her contacts, including a man named Ryan Burns, another prepaid legal services associate, that she was embarking on a road trip to Utah to meet him, but her actual destination, investigators believe, was Mesa, Arizona, a grueling 11-hour drive from her starting point. Those extra gas cans would allow her to refuel without stopping at public stations, keeping her journey off the grid. On June 3rd, 2008, the day before the murder, cell phone records showed Jody Arias called Travis Alexander 4 times between 1:00 a.m. and 3:00 p.m. He didn't answer. Later that day, Travis called her back. 2 conversations. The first lasted 18 minutes, the second, 41 minutes. The content of those calls remains unknown, a silent prelude to the horror that was to unfold. But whatever was said, or left unsaid, the very next day, everything would change. On June 4th, the day of the murder, Jody Arias did indeed drive to Salt Lake City, Utah, to meet her co-worker, Ryan Burns. But Burns immediately sensed something was off. Jody's typically blonde hair had been dyed a dark brown, almost black. More alarmingly, she had visible cuts on her hands. When Burns questioned her about the injuries, she brushed them off, claiming she'd broken a glass at work. Despite her altered appearance and fresh wounds, Burns noted she seemed unusually happy, almost giddy. Meanwhile, back in Mesa, Travis Alexander missed a scheduled work conference call that same day. This was highly uncharacteristic. He was known for his professionalism. His punctuality, his absence sparked the initial wave of concern among his friends, a concern that would grow with each passing, silent day. until the horrifying discovery on June 9th. On June 17th, nearly 2 weeks after the murder, Jodi Arias voluntarily provided police with her DNA and fingerprints. At this stage, she wasn't officially considered the prime suspect. She presented a calm, cooperative demeanor, a stark contrast to the possessive, unpredictable woman Travis's friends had described, but the facade was about to crumble. 2 days later, the forensic team delivered their bombshell, the recovered images from Travis's broken digital camera. There they were, Jodi and Travis, in intimate poses. On June 4th, the last photos of Travis alive in his shower, and then the most damning images of all Travis's bloody body on the bathroom floor. And in another shot, what appeared to be Jodi's foot, sneakers and all, disturbingly close to the scene. When police confronted Jodi with this new evidence, she initially stuck to her story. She was never in Mesa. She had an alibi. She claimed Ryan Burns could vouch for her presence in Salt Lake City around the time of the murder, and while Burns did confirm her arrival in Utah, he also reiterated the oddities: her freshly dyed dark hair, the cuts on her hands. Then, the science spoke unequivocally. Lab results came back for the bloody palm print found on the wall at the crime scene. It contained a mixture of DNA, Travis Alexander's, and Jodi Arias's. The net was closing. By July 15th, 2008, armed with a mountain of incriminating evidence, police brought Jodi Arias in for formal questioning. Detective Esteban Flores led the interrogation. He systematically dismantled her timeline, pointing out an unexplained 18-hour gap in her journey from California to Utah, more than enough time to detour to Mesa, commit murder, and continue her drive. Her cell phone, he noted, had been turned off for a significant portion of that time, a common tactic to avoid leaving a digital footprint. Even when confronted with the irrefutable proof, the blood evidence, her DNA, her fingerprints, the damning photographs, Jodi denied everything. The pictures, she insisted, must have been altered. She had nothing to do with it. Then, the tears began to flow. But what happened next, captured on the stark, emotionless surveillance video of the interrogation room, stunned everyone. Left alone, Jodi Arias began to behave bizarrely. She did a headstand against the wall, sang quietly to herself, paced, and even seemed to be conversing with an unseen presence. As she was being processed for booking, told she would be photographed, she even struck a pose, smiled, and asked, "How do I look?" Over the subsequent days and weeks, Jodi's story began to morph, to twist and turn like a chameleon changing its colors. Her initial steadfast denials gave way to a new narrative. She now admitted she was with Travis on the day he died. But, she claimed, 2 masked intruders, a man and a woman, had broken into the house. They, she said, were the ones who attacked and killed Travis. She, the innocent bystander, was spared, but only after they threatened to harm her family if she ever spoke a word. She had hidden in a closet during the brutal assault, she alleged, and fled only when the killers were gone, her voice choked with emotion, tears streaming. But the story was riddled with inconsistencies, failing to align with the physical evidence. Then, another dramatic shift. At some point, confronted with the undeniable, Jodi changed her story yet again. This time, she admitted it, she had killed Travis Alexander, but, she insisted, it was an act of self-defense. He had attacked her, she claimed, in a fit of rage after she dropped his new, expensive camera. He became violent, hitting her, even breaking her finger, terrified for her life. she fought back. She remembered running to his closet, she said, grabbing a gun she believed to be his, and firing in a moment of sheer panic, but the multiple stab wounds, the slit throat. She couldn't remember how or when she had inflicted those injuries. Her memory of the critical moments, she professed, was a blur, a fog of trauma, only clearing when she found herself driving away, her hands covered in blood, with no clear recollection of the preceding horror. Investigators, however, were piecing together a very different sequence of events, one far more chilling and calculated. They believed that after her intimate photo shoot with Travis on that fateful afternoon, as he stepped into the shower, Jodi retrieved a knife, possibly one she had brought with her. She entered the bathroom, perhaps under the guise of continuing to take pictures. The last photo of Travis alive, sitting in the shower, captured him just moments before the onslaught began. The attack was ferocious. Defensive wounds on Travis's hands told a silent story of his desperate struggle for survival. He managed to escape the shower, bleeding profusely, stumbling towards the wash basin, coughing up blood that stained the counter. He tried to reach for help, to escape down the hallway, but Jodi, relentless, caught up with him. She stabbed him repeatedly in the back, and then, the fatal, final act of control, she pulled his head back and slit his throat. The massive pool of blood on the carpet, found by his friends, marked the spot where this brutal act occurred. Investigators theorized Jodi then attempted to drag Travis's body back to the bathroom, pressing her bloody hand against the wall for the leverage, leaving that crucial palm print containing both their DNA. During the violent struggle, the camera they had been using fell, its lens inadvertently capturing that blurry image of Jodi's foot near Travis's lifeless body. And as a final, chilling act, after he was down, likely shaking from the impact of his injuries, she fired a single shot into his forehead. The entire, gruesome attack, they estimated, lasted approximately 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Following the murder, Jodi Arias fled. Driving through the desolate desert, she stopped her car, changed her clothes, and discarded the blood-soaked garments in a dumpster. Attempting to erase her crime, she then continued her journey, calm enough to meet Ryan Burns, trying to establish her alibi. Soon after, she would face the media, confidently, almost defiantly, proclaiming her innocence, assuring reporters that the evidence would exonerate her, that no jury would ever convict her. The trial of Jodi Arias began on January 2nd, 2013. It was a media circus, broadcast live, captivating and horrifying a nation. Jodi's defense remained self-defense. She admitted to killing Travis, but painted him as an abuser, claiming he attacked her in a rage when she dropped his camera. She testified that he body-slammed her, broke her finger, and in fear for her life, she grabbed a gun from his closet and fired. The stabbing, she repeated, was a blur, an act committed in a dissociative state. The prosecution, led by Juan Martinez, presented a starkly different narrative, a premeditated, cold-blooded murder, fueled by jealousy and obsession. They highlighted her meticulous planning, borrowing gasoline cans from her ex-boyfriend, Daryl Brewer, to facilitate a long, untraceable drive, avoiding security cameras and credit card receipts. They introduced audio recordings and explicit text messages that painted a picture of a complex, often volatile, and unhealthy sexual relationship between Jodi and Travis. Witnesses testified to Jodi's increasingly obsessive behavior, her history of manipulation, her stalking. The prosecution argued she was a woman scorned, enraged that Travis was moving on, particularly by his planned trip to Cancun with another woman. During the trial, Jody even made the shocking and unsubstantiated claim that Travis was a pedophile, a desperate, damaging tactic that further inflamed the already emotional proceedings. To bolster her defense, Jody's lawyers argued she suffered from memory loss due to extreme mental trauma. A clinical psychologist testified that Arias might have experienced an acute stress response, triggering a fight or flight reaction that impaired her ability to recall the events clearly. He suggested she exhibited signs of anxiety stemming from long-term trauma. However, the prosecution's psychologist offered a contrasting diagnosis: borderline personality disorder. He characterized Jody as emotionally unstable, manipulative, and prone to extreme, unpredictable behavior and intense, unstable relationships. Jody Arias herself took the stand for an unprecedented 18 days, her testimony often rambling, contradictory, and punctuated by emotional outbursts that swung from tearful vulnerability to defiant anger. The jury was faced with a dizzying array of conflicting narratives and psychological assessments. After 15 painstaking hours of deliberation, on May 8, 2013, the jury delivered its verdict. Jody Arias was found guilty of first-degree murder. The question then turned to her sentence: life in prison or death. The sentencing phase, however, proved as complex as the trial itself. The jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision on the death penalty. A mistrial was declared for the penalty phase, and a new jury was impaneled. This second jury convened on October 20th, 2014, tasked solely with deciding Arias's fate. Again, they were deadlocked. 11 jurors voted for death, but one lone holdout voted against it. With the death penalty now off the table due to 2 hung juries, the final decision rested with the judge. On April 13, 2015, Judge Sherry Stevens sentenced Jody Arias to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She was subsequently incarcerated at the Arizona State Prison Complex, Perryville, in Goodyear, Arizona, where she remains to this day. Even behind bars, Jody Arias has continued to make headlines, attempting multiple times to appeal her conviction, to reshape the narrative, but the evidence, meticulously gathered and presented, alongside the powerful testimony of those who knew Travis and witnessed Jody's descent, ultimately painted an undeniable picture of obsession, control, and a crime of shocking brutality that captivated and horrified a nation. It's a grim reminder of how quickly love can twist into something dark and deadly, and how the search for truth can lead down the most disturbing of paths.